This is the country so wealthy it quietly owns half of America, not by conquest, but by capital. From farmland and factories to skyscrapers and tech giants, its wealth flows through U.S. soil without resistance. While most nations flash flags and parades, this one hides behind asset managers and sovereign funds. But to understand how one nation could quietly buy half of America, we first need to look at the richest countries in the world, starting with the country that accidentally made every citizen a millionaire without lifting a finger. On the surface, Norway is a land of fjords, fishing boats, and postcard-perfect villages. But behind that calm Nordic exterior is a financial powerhouse unlike any other. This tiny nation of just over 5 million people controls the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, worth well over $1.6 trillion. That's more than $300,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. Secret? Oil. Lots of it. Since the 1960s, Norway has been pumping billions of barrels from the North Sea. But instead of blowing the profits on short-term gains, it invested them, quietly buying stakes in over 9,000 companies worldwide. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, even luxury brands, prime real estate, and critical infrastructure in countries halfway across the world. This isn't just passive investing, it's global influence disguised as a portfolio. Norway now owns over 1.5% of every publicly traded company on Earth. And while most countries argue over budgets and debt ceilings, Norway earns billions just in annual investment returns to the outside world. It's a small, peaceful country, but behind the scenes, it's one of the quietest economic superpowers alive today. And Norway is just the beginning, because the next country on our list plays the same game, only on an even bigger scale. Barely bigger than New York City. Singapore is a country you could drive across in under an hour, yet it holds one of the largest concentrations of wealth on Earth. In just a few decades, it transformed from a struggling post-colonial port into the world's ultimate safe deposit box for billionaires. Why? Banking secrecy, political stability, and tax laws so attractive that the ultra-rich park their fortunes here like vintage cars in a climate-controlled garage. The city-state's sovereign wealth funds, Temasek Holdings and GIC, control assets worth over $1.5 trillion combined, with stakes in companies from Alibaba to Blackstone, prime London real estate, and tech startups in Silicon Valley. Singapore's role in global finance is so big that when it invests in a company, stock prices often jump overnight. But the real power lies in the private banking sector, where an estimated $2 trillion in foreign wealth is managed behind closed doors. Here, money from Asia, the Middle East, and even Europe flows in, not just for returns, but for security. Critics call it the Fort Knox of the Pacific. Supporters call it smart nation building. Either way, Singapore isn't just rich. It's strategically rich, turning its small size into a global advantage. And if you think this is impressive, wait until you see the European country that's turned its neutrality into a gold mine. In the heart of Europe, surrounded by the Alps, lies a nation that's been guarding other people's money for centuries. Switzerland, neutral in war, aggressive in finance. Its greatest weapon? Trust. Swiss banks became famous for their secrecy laws, once so strict that revealing a client's name could land a banker in prison. For decades, dictators, billionaires, and even entire governments stashed fortunes here, safe from political upheaval and prying eyes. But Switzerland isn't just a storage locker for the rich. Its sovereign wealth and pension funds, private banking sector, and insurance giants control trillions of dollars in global assets. Swiss investors own skyscrapers in New York, luxury hotels in Dubai, vineyards in France, and stakes in tech companies from Silicon Valley to Shenzhen. The country's neutrality means it can do business with almost anyone, from rival superpowers to resource-rich developing nations. And while secrecy laws have loosened under international pressure, the flow of wealth hasn't stopped. It's simply gone deeper underground into family offices, private trusts, and discreet investment firms. For over a century, Switzerland has been the silent partner in the fortunes of the world's elite. And as you'll see in the next country on our list, when you combine secrecy with raw resource wealth, the result is something even more formidable. In just 50 years, the United Arab Emirates went from a cluster of fishing villages and desert outposts, one of the wealthiest investment powerhouses on Earth. Its secret weapon? vision? Oil money converted into global influence. The UAE's sovereign wealth funds, led by the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, control an estimated $1.4 trillion in assets. That makes them some of the largest investors in the world, owning stakes in London's tallest skyscrapers, New York's luxury hotels, European football clubs, and multinational tech giants. And they don't just buy, they build. Dubai turned itself into a luxury capital, attracting billionaires, influencers, and corporations with zero income tax, record-breaking architecture, and one of the busiest airports on the planet. Meanwhile, Abu Dhabi quietly channels its oil wealth into long-term investments, energy, logistics, and even Hollywood studios. The result? The UAE doesn't just survive in a post-oil future. It thrives. And while tourists see malls, beaches, and supercars, behind the scenes, the Emirates are buying pieces of the world. Our next country does the same thing, but on a scale so massive, it's reshaping global politics. No country in modern history has bought more of the world faster than China. Over the last 2 decades, Beijing has turned trade surpluses and state-owned wealth funds into a buying spree that spans continents. Through giants like China Investment Corporation, with over $1.35 trillion in assets, and state-owned banks, China has acquired ports in Greece, energy grids in Europe, farmland in Africa, and skyscrapers in Manhattan. Even Hollywood hasn't escaped. Chinese firms have quietly taken stakes in major film studios, shaping what movies get made. But the most controversial purchases? U.S. farmland and real estate. In less than 15 years, Chinese entities have spent billions acquiring agricultural land, food companies, and residential developments across America. To Beijing, it's not just investment, it's strategic control. Secure the food supply, the transport routes, and the raw materials, and you can influence entire economies. And when combined with the Belt and Road Initiative, a $1 trillion global infrastructure plan, China's investments become more than business. They become foreign policy with a balance sheet. If this feels aggressive, wait until you see the next country on our list, because they've been quietly buying America for decades without anyone noticing. When most people think of Canada, they picture maple syrup, hockey, and polite neighbors. What they don't picture is a real estate empire that stretches deep into the United States. Canada is the single largest foreign owner of U.S. land, with Canadian investors controlling millions of acres of American soil, forests, and farmland. How? Through pension funds, investment firms, and private billionaires quietly buying property just across the border. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, one of the largest retirement funds in the world, has over $600 billion in assets, much of it invested in American real estate, infrastructure, and energy. They own stakes in New York office towers, California farmland, and Midwestern manufacturing hubs, and the total footprint becomes staggering. The strategy is simple. America has resources, space, and a stable legal system, making it a perfect place to park wealth long-term. And because Canada shares the longest undefended border in the world with the US, these investments rarely raise alarms. While China's purchases make headlines, Canada's go unnoticed. Yet, acre for acre, no other nation owns more of America's backyard. Our next country may not have the same land footprint, but it's managed to turn a tiny population into a global investment powerhouse. For nearly a century, Saudi Arabia's power has been built on one thing: oil. But in the last 2 decades, it's been converting that black gold into a global portfolio that reaches far beyond the desert. At the heart of this empire is the Public Investment Fund, one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world, with over $925 billion in assets. They own stakes in Uber, Disney, and Electronic Arts, massive real estate projects in London and Los Angeles, and entire sports leagues through their takeover of Live Golf. They've poured billions into tech startups, luxury hotels, and mega projects like Neom, a $500 billion futuristic city being built in the desert. And yes, Saudi money has also quietly flowed into American farmland, factories, and office towers. The strategy is clear: diversify before the oil runs dry, and make sure Saudi influence stretches into every major global market. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman calls it Vision 2030. Critics call it empire building. Either way, it's working. And while Saudi Arabia's moves make headlines, the next country has been buying America's heartland for decades, without most people even realizing it. The British Empire may have faded from the history books, but its modern version still stretches across the globe, just in a very different form. Today, the United Kingdom is one of the largest foreign investors in the United States. British pension funds, corporations, and billionaires own everything from American farmland to Wall Street office towers, Hollywood production companies, and even major U.S. utilities. The UK's private investment giants like Legal & General and Aviva manage trillions in assets, much of it deployed across America. Add to that royal family holdings, global real estate portfolios, and corporate acquisitions, and you'll find British influence in industries ranging from tech to agriculture. In fact, many Americans shop, eat, and work in companies that are quietly UK-owned without ever realizing it. But the UK doesn't just buy into the US. It also serves as a financial hub for foreign wealth entering America, thanks to its banking networks and overseas territories like the Cayman Islands. The empire may have downsized, but Britain's economic reach is as global as ever, and yet all of these countries combined still can't match the investment footprint of the one nation at the top of this list. A country so rich it quietly owns half of America. There is a country whose wealth is so vast, so meticulously concealed, that its presence in America is less a headline and more a shadow, a silent force controlling assets worth trillions without fanfare or spectacle. It does not wave flags. It does not boast. It does not play the game of loud superpowers. Instead, it is a masterclass in quiet accumulation, strategic patience, and absolute discretion. No one talks about it openly. Its ownership is buried behind offshore trusts, shell companies, and institutional investments that blend seamlessly into the American financial system. Its fingerprints are everywhere, on the skyscrapers that define city skylines, on the farmland that feeds millions, on tech startups shaping the future, and on the very infrastructure that powers daily life. This is a kingdom of wealth without castles or armies, built not on guns or oil rigs, but on stocks, bonds, and the relentless flow of capital. A financial empire so deeply intertwined with America that in many ways it owns half the country without firing a single shot. Its sovereign wealth fund dwarfs the GDP of entire nations. Its private investors rank among the largest shareholders in industries from consumer goods and pharmaceuticals to real estate, energy, and finance. And yet its power is never loud. It operates under the radar, avoiding headlines, while its capital seeps into every corner of the US economy. From oil kingdoms to tech empires, from royal families to billion-dollar ministries, we've seen wealth in every form, but none of them compare to the shadow at the top of this list. The country's so wealthy it can buy into every industry. If you've made it this far, you've just learned what most people never will. Subscribe to Luxrish, because the next story might change the way you see everything.